to Bradley the Singing Chef. Today I have one of my favorite go-to recipes to feed a crowd for breakfast or for brunch. And that is my homemade cinnamon rolls recipe. I posted some pictures of this earlier and people were like, I want that recipe. So today is the day we're getting our cinnamon roll on. All right, first step I've got to do, this is a yeasted dough. So I have some instant fast-acting yeast packets. I'm going to use 2 of those. I have some sort of warm water, a little bit above room temperature, only about a half a cup or so of water there. To that, I'm going to add these packets. So snip off end, in goes 1, and snip off the end, in goes 2. To that mixture, I'm going to add just a spoonful of sugar, as Mary Poppins would say, just to feed that yeast. Stir it around, and I'm going to let that yeast bloom into that water, feeding on that sugar, for about 5 minutes or so. While that is happening, I'm going to continue with my process here. Okay, in this mixer bowl over here, I've got a stand mixer and I'm going to use 2 attachments today. One is a dough hook. I'll use that for the kneading process. But first I need to just mix some ingredients together. So I've got my regular paddle attachment that will go here on my stand mixer. All right, so I am going to combine in here 3 cups of flour. I have a half cup measuring cup here. So that's a half. This is all-purpose flour. 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3. And then I'm going to take 1/3 of a cup of regular white sugar, level that off, put that in my bowl, and a little bit of salt, about a teaspoon or so. Let's see, that's about a teaspoon. I'm not too picky about my measurement of salt because I actually like some salt in anything that is sweet, but at least a teaspoon of salt you are going to need in that bowl. And I'm going to just stir that around with my stand mixer just to get the sugar and the flour and the salt incorporated together. All right, I'm going to let this go for a little while. Continue letting this bloom for about, I'd say, another 3 minutes or so, and then we'll continue combining ingredients in our stand mixer. I'll be right back. Hey y'all, I am back. My dry ingredients have started incorporating over here just fine, and my yeast has been blooming for about the 5-minute mark or so. So let me tell you what else I got going on. These are our wet ingredients that are going to go into the mix for our cinnamon roll dough. I have in this measuring cup a half cup of buttermilk and a half cup of regular milk. Now I actually use almond milk because that's what I keep in my house, and that's fine, but if you have regular milk, that's perfectly fine too. If you don't have buttermilk on hand, you could certainly do a full cup of just regular milk. The trick is you need to scald this a little bit. You can do that on your stove top, or you can just pop it in your microwave for 45 seconds or so, and that'll do just fine. And then I've let it come back down after it's scalded to a tolerable sort of room temperature warm almost, right? So that's a full cup of milk. Mine is half buttermilk, half almond milk. That is going to go into this bowl because I'm going to mix some stuff together. To that, I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup of vegetable oil. So I can just measure this right here in the same measurer. That's 1/3. Put that right into the milk. To that, I am going to add 2 eggs that I've let come to room temperature. I don't know the science behind why that makes a difference, but I will say it does. So take your eggs out of your fridge prior to even starting this recipe. Let those come to room temperature and it will help your recipe along. All right, that's 1 egg and 2 eggs. I'm gonna just give those a little poke and a whisk. Just to break them up a little bit before I put them into that larger dish over there. Then to that, you can see my frothy yeast concoction is also gonna go into that dish so that I have enough room to kind of get all that whisked together before I pour it into the mixing bowl. Alrighty, so all of this wet ingredient, as I'm beating it, still with the paddle attachment, I'm just going to gradually on kind of low speed pour in the wet ingredients into the flour and sugar that I already have in my mixer. All down there. Yeah. Alrighty. Turn it up a little bit. And just beat that until it's really well blended. You don't want to go too terribly high because I don't want to ruin the gluten that's in the flour too terribly much. Great, now that that's blended, turn it down to low again because I don't want to wear my flour. And about, I don't know, half a cup at a time, I'm going to continue adding flour, maybe another cup and a half, just until you see the dough start pulling away from the sides of the mixer. There's 1/2. Continue adding slowly. Here's another 1/2. Oh yeah, it's already starting to pull away a little bit from the sides of my bowl. So I may not need this entire 1/2, let's see. Oh yeah, it's starting to ball up all around the paddle mixer. Kind of help me clean the sides of the bowl to get all that dough into one ball. Yeah, that is looking good after that last 1/2. So at this point I'm going to turn off my mixer so that I can get that dough off the paddle and into the bowl and switch attachments on my stand mixer. Now you could take this bowl out, flour your surface really well and knead it by hand, but you need to knead this dough for, gosh, at least about 10 minutes. That is a morning workout I'm not interested in. So I'm going to let this handy dandy stand mixer and dough hook attachment help a brother out. All right, get all that goodness down in there. Put that attachment to the side. Then put this dough hook attachment onto my stand mixer. Come on, there, now it's locked in place. And I'm gonna have a little bit more flour on the ready to make sure that the dough pulls away still from the side of the bowl, a little bit at a time. Now, we're kneading. I don't have it on a very high speed, but I'm gonna let this go for, like I said, about 10 minutes. So I'm gonna continue here, and we'll be back once we have a nicely kneaded dough. See you in a bit. Hey y'all, I am back. This dough has been kneading for about 10 minutes here on my dough hook. And I'm gonna transfer my dough to a mixing bowl here to let it rise, okay? But I wanna grease this bowl, so I'm just taking a little bit of vegetable oil, just a tiny bit into the bottom paper towel. I'm just gonna rub that all around the surface of the bowl. If you have cooking spray, you could of course use that. If you have shortening, you could use that. I'm just choosing to use vegetable oil since that's actually what's in the dough already. And I had it on hand. Okay, so let's take a look. So there is this beautiful stretchy dough. I'm just gonna scrape it down off the dough hook into the bowl of the stand mixer first, just to get everything off the hook. Off the hook. Yeah. Take this bowl out. Come on, stand mixer, work with me. Let's see. Get you out of my way first. This thing is really locked down. All right, there we go. Now I've got my dough here in my bowl. I'm gonna turn it out. It should come out pretty easily into this mixing bowl where I'm gonna let it rise. Come on, dough. You can flour your hands a little bit. Help it out of the bowl. There we go. Awesome. Not too tacky on the sides there. Make sure I get all that goodness into this bowl. And all I'm gonna do is cover this with its lid, and I'm gonna let it rest and rise with that yeast for about 1 to 2 hours. I'm gonna check it after an hour, see if it's risen. Really want it to almost double in size. So I'm gonna let it go for an hour, see where we are. Might go a little bit longer, and then we'll be right back to start figuring out the filling, which is the magic, in my opinion, for these beautiful cinnamon rolls. See you in a bit. Hey y'all, I am back. My dough has been rising for only about an hour, and I've gotta show you this. It is already doubled in size in this bowl. I mean, come on. It rises beautiful. I'm gonna just set this to the side for now because I need to start working on my filling, which to me is the most magical part of any cinnamon roll. So I have a 1/2 cup or 1 stick of unsalted butter that I have let come to room temperature, so it is softened and ready to go into my mixing bowl. I cleaned out my mixing bowl, put my paddle attachment back on so that I can beat this into a lovely frenzy. To that I've got a cup of dark brown sugar, and it is firmly packed into that cup measuring cup. So get that cup of brown sugar, and then I have a 1/2 cup of regular white sugar into the mix, and to that I have 2 tablespoons, not teaspoons, tablespoons of cinnamon. I mean, it's a cinnamon roll. You need a lot of cinnamon, right? So I'm gonna dump that into, I don't wanna leave any of that cinnamon out, into that mixing bowl. Then I'm just gonna turn my paddle attachment on and cream all of that butter into those 2 sugars with all of that cinnamon. Definitely want it to get all of it incorporated. Don't want to leave any to waste. And it really doesn't take very long at all to get that cream together. Just like that. All right, y'all, I am ready to assemble these beautiful cinnamon rolls. First thing I've got to do is on my clean surface here, just get a little flour, dust all over. Then I need my rolling pin to get some of that flour love on it as well. Then I'm going to take out this dough that has risen for a full hour. You can let it rise for even longer, but I think that time frame is perfect. To double in size at least. Put that away. All right, so I'm going to punch out this dough a little bit. Turn it in that flour. Then I'm going to take my rolling pin and I'm going to roll this out into a rectangle shape. That's where I want to get it. So I'm going to get it lengthwise this way. Then I'm going to turn it. Roll a little bit more. That direction. Oh yeah. Get that nice. I mean, it's so easy to move because I think dough is such a pretty thing. Let's get that rolled out to about, I don't know, 1.5 feet by 1 foot or so of our dough, trying to make it as even as I can. And then directly onto that rectangle of dough is going to go this scrumptious butter and sugar filling. I'm just going to crumble it a little bit of everywhere. All over. I mean, come on. What is not to love about that? Crumble, crumble, crumble. Get cinnamon sugar out to the edges. Here on the side borders. Because that's going to make sure you have some of that cinnamon mixture in those end pieces. You can leave a little bit of the edge of the top and the bottom of your rectangle. The widest, longest edge. But you want to try to get some of that towards the sides for sure. All right, that is our filling. Now, next step, it's a cinnamon roll, we gotta roll. So I'm gonna take this edge that doesn't have much filling here, and I'm just gonna roll it onto there. Because I've floured my board nicely, I can just continue that roll all the way until I have this beautiful, gorgeous log of dough that I've just rolled into place. Now, the next thing you need, get this rolling pin out of my way, is you need to grease a baking dish. Now I have this nice, pretty baking dish to show you a pretty picture later, but you can actually use cake pans, like maybe 2 9-inch cake pans, and in fact, just in case I run out of room in that baking dish, I have another cake pan on the ready to put more cinnamon rolls in. But we'll see how many I can fit into this greased, prepared baking dish. I'm gonna score these to just kind of know where I want to go with these cinnamon rolls. Yeah, I think that should be good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's see, I'm gonna try to get maybe 10 out of this. Yeah, all right, here we go. I got a bench scraper here that I'm using to cut this dough. I find that that's the easiest if you just go straight through with your bench cutter. If it's a pretty decent edge on it, then it's gonna go through the dough just fine. Chop down, and then I'm gonna turn these and put the cut side upright into my greased baking dish. Same thing with this one. Gonna leave them a little bit of space in between to expand because they will continue in our second rise to grow not only up but out. I want them to have a little bit of space to do so. Keep putting them in. Gonna be so good. I can't even wait. Good side up. Yep, I was right. I'm gonna need that extra dish. Nothing wrong with that. More cinnamon rolls, the better. So in that one, I fit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got a little bit more. Really just a couple of these and one tiny little baby that can go in that extra pan. Now, I am going to cover these again, and I'm gonna let them rise in these dishes for another at least 40 minutes, maybe even an hour, and let them continue to rise and expand as that yeast does all of its magic. Right before that time is up, we will start working on our icing because it really doesn't take these long to bake. Once I get a little closer to these being risen, I will preheat my oven to, I think it's 350, right? Yeah, 350 to get those ready to bake. But let's let these babies go to bed for a little while, get a little bit more plump and beautiful, and I will be right back. Hey y'all, welcome back. It is time to unwrap the goodies. All right, I have let these rise in this baking dish, oh my gosh, for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so, and look, they have snuggled up against each other in that beautiful baking dish, ready to be baked. I have my oven preheated at 350 degrees. I'm gonna pop these in the oven. It'll probably take about 25 minutes or so until they are nice and golden brown to be baked. While they're in the oven, I'm gonna work on the icing for these cinnamon rolls. But first, I gotta get them in there to bake. All right, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, y'all, I have my cinnamon rolls in the oven baking away, and I'm gonna start working on the icing that goes on top of these rolls. The first thing you're gonna need is a half a stick of butter that is at room temperature. You've got to get this at room temperature or this creaming in the mixing bowl just won't work right. So take your half stick of butter, pop it in there. To that, I've got about 2 to 3 ounces of cream cheese that has also been softened to room temperature. So I'm gonna take that, dump the cream cheese in with my butter. All right, I'm gonna whip this together. I have my whisk attachment on my KitchenAid mixer, stand mixer today for this, just to whip this up nice and evenly. So get that going at a pretty high speed, because I really want to make sure that the butter and the cream cheese get whipped together. Oh yeah. This takes a few minutes for that to come together and get whipped nice and evenly. All right, to that, I am going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Let's see, that is half a teaspoon, so 1/2. A full teaspoon of vanilla extract. I've also got some light corn syrup here, and I actually need a 1/2 tablespoon of this light corn syrup. It's 1/2 tablespoon. Get all of that out of there. Get into the mix. All that can go to the side. And then lastly, I need about a teaspoon or so of fresh lemon juice. So I've got a 1/2 lemon here. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball. Probably takes about a 1/2 lemon for about a 1/2 teaspoon worth of juice into the mix. I'm gonna incorporate those liquids into the cream cheese and butter mixture for a little bit. That's looking good. Gonna scrape down the sides of the bowl to make sure all the butter and the cream cheese are getting whipped together into this mixture. Then turn it on and whip a little bit more. Beautiful. Alrighty. Scrape down one more time. Then I'm going to start adding my powdered sugar, which is what's going to take some of those tangy, lemony cream cheese flavors and sweeten it right up for us. So I have 1.25 cups of powdered sugar in here, and I'm going to put at least half of that in. And slowly turn on the mixer so I don't wear a snowstorm of powdered sugar. There we go. Once I get half done, pour in the rest of that 1/4 cup. And I have some other powdered sugar kind of on standby, because you're going to have to eyeball what consistency of this icing you really want. Again, start on low to get some of that incorporated. But then we're going to actually whip this at a pretty good frenzy for about 5 minutes or so until it's nice and creamy. Yeah. There we go. Starting to come together. I'm going to scrape down the sides one more time, make sure all that sugar is going into the mix of things for our frosting. And I'm just going to turn this up and let it go for 4 or 5 minutes or so until I get the consistency of the icing that I want for those amazing cinnamon rolls that are in the oven. All right, I'll be back once this is whipped up and ready to go. Hey y'all, I am back, and oh my goodness, this kitchen smells insane. And look at these cinnamon rolls. I mean, they are just trying to hop out of the baking dish. They've risen so much. Look at that. Oh my gosh. I can't even stand it. Okay, so these have literally just come out of the oven, because that is when we do step 1 of our icing process. The icing is here in my stand mixer, and I let it go for like about 5 minutes or so until, you know, the vanilla extract kind of has a brown color to it. As you get this beaten to the right consistency, your icing is going to turn much brighter white. I'm going to give it one more spin really quickly. Perfect. And look at that frosty goodness there. Okay, so while these are still warm, I love this part, I'm going to take some of this frosting, let's knock it down out of my whisk, into the bowl. Come on, there you go. And I'm just going to put a little on the top of each hot cinnamon roll, so that that frosting can melt down into each roll while they are cooling in the pan. I mean, come on. That is the secret to sugary, juicy filling on a cinnamon roll. Just enough on top for now to melt down all over each of the rolls. Don't need a lot. We're going to come back after they cool down and give them another good dousing of icing. All right, I am going to let these cool completely down to slightly warm, we'll say. Once this icing has all melted down and gotten the centers all ooey and gooey, we will come back with the rest of our frosting and top it. That will be a thicker consistency on top for the perfect cinnamon roll. I'll be back after these have cooled down. All right, y'all, last step. I'm gonna take the rest of this frosting, now that these are down to just kind of a warm level, and frost all over the top of these babies. Just slather on all that frosting. Oh yeah. A little on each of these goes a long way. That, my friends, is how to make some amazing cinnamon rolls. I'm gonna get one of these out of the pan as soon as I get a plate, and I'll be right back. Okay, I can't take it. I have to try one of these. I'm gonna get this one out the side of this dish. Let's see what we got. Oh, yes, you beauty. Look at this. Fluffy, beautiful dough. All that icing. And look at all that cinnamon and butter and sugar in the middle. Okay, we're going in. It's happening. Let's see what this tastes like. I know what it tastes like. It's gonna taste good. I just have to prove it on camera. Oh, it's so soft. Oh yeah. First of all, it's not killing me with sweetness. That little bit of cream cheese in the icing and a little bit of lemon juice is actually helping balance the sweetness so much that I don't think if I had to eat a whole one, I would be dying about halfway through. And the dough is so just light and fluffy. Yes, it is everything a cinnamon roll should be. And you don't even have to go to the mall to get it. Am I dating myself by saying go to the mall? Anyway, these cinnamon rolls, I think they're really gonna change your life and change your brunch and change your breakfast pursuits. So I hope you will take the time to make these. They are, in my opinion, the best version of a cinnamon roll that I've had in a very, very long time. Thank you so much for joining me on Bradley the Singing Chef. I hope you'll get in the kitchen and try these. Share these videos with your friends. Please tell them to subscribe to my channel. The more the merrier here in Bradley the Singing Chef's kitchen. Eat well, love always. Bon appetit, y'all.